Hi friends, it's Kurt from Transformative Journeys again. It's been a little while. The last time I posted a video, I said I was going to be going up on a trip to do some exploring, and I would be posting more and maybe be posting while I was en route, and none of that happened. So I'm here to explain myself. Anyway, give you a little bit of a rundown on the ride that I did. I wanted to do some exploring up in southwestern Oregon. I'd been up there a little bit, and I wanted to explore more. Some of the great roads on the West Coast are not the roads that are well known, not the roads you necessarily hear about on motorcycle forums and on YouTube, but frequently the really great roads are these minor roads that run back and forth between the coast and inland. And so I wanted to go up and explore some of those in southwestern Oregon, some of the roads that run between Highway 101 on the Oregon coast and Interstate 5, a little bit to the interior. So that's what we did. We headed up. We spent a night in a great campground called Mill Creek, just south of Crescent City. And then in the morning of day 2, we got up and we headed up into Oregon. And when we got up Highway 101 to Gold Beach, we turned inland on one of these great little roads that runs back towards I-5. This goes up past a town called Agnes, and then past a town called Gallus, and then eventually connects you out to I-5. From there, we went a little bit north, and the riding was the way I remember it. You know, minor roads, some technically challenging, almost no traffic, very, very little out there in terms of population, not much in the way of phone signal, but it's really great. Anyway, we got past Gallus, we got to the I-5 corridor, we went a little bit further north, we turned back west, and this is where this next road is where the roads got really good. And there was a town near there that I remember the name of. I remember thinking, I have to remember the name of this town because this is where one of the segments of road was really great, and the town was called Reuben, like a sandwich. And anyway, not far from Reuben, because we had not made reservations for camping beyond the first night because we didn't know for sure where we would be. We knew we were going to have to start looking for campsites probably mid-afternoon to make sure we were going to get something. So while we're on this minor road by now west of Reuben, we found this little campground, I don't know, 10 or 12 spots, vault toilets, no water, no garbage. Now, that sounds like not that great, but there are a couple of big advantages. One is the campground was free. It's National Forest Service campground at a place called Eden Valley. And it took me a minute to think of the name. And it was, I can see why it got its name. It was in a beautiful area. We only discovered it sort of by accident because I'd wanted to stop to take pictures of a bunch of blooming wild irises and rhododendrons. So we camped there. It was absolutely silent. The advantage of not having any garbage service is because you pack everything out. The bears have not learned to view the campground as a food source. So not much in the way of worrying about bears, not much in the way of worrying about anything, and not much in the way of worrying about other people. We were the only people in the campground that night, and we never heard any traffic on the road. We were probably 60, 70 yards away from the road, but because there was no traffic on the road, we didn't hear any traffic noise. Next morning we got up there and the road was it continued to be just spectacular. We were accompanied for a while by a big old cow elk. We came upon her and I saw her up on the road ahead of us, and probably, I don't know how close we got to her, 50 yards maybe, and she started to trot ahead of us, and she trotted for the longest time. She didn't want to get off the road, and actually she never did get off the road. She trotted on the road in front of us until we got to a junction, and she turned off at the junction. She must have been about 6 feet tall at the withers. I mean, you wouldn't want to mess with a creature like that. She would have been formidable. Anyway, we continued into a town called Powers, delightful town. Nice folks. There was a shop there that was working on, a mechanic shop, gas station that was working on bikes and ATVs. Across the street was a really good little restaurant. I really liked Powers. It was pretty, maybe just idiosyncratic to me, but because I spent part of my teen years and young adult years living in rural Washington State in logging country, it felt very familiar to me. The architecture of the town, just the way the town felt, just felt familiar, which was very comfortable for me. Unfortunately, it didn't get so comfortable for my friend, who's 20-ish year old R1150 GS, well cared for, but well ridden. Its starter decided to give up while we were there, and there wasn't anything we could do to resolve it. We were able to get it restarted one time, but then it didn't want to restart again after that. Apparently a bad Bendix drive on the starter, and he was going to need to find a BMW dealer. Fortunately, he has the highest level of AAA service, and so AAA dispatched a truck and took him to Eureka, of all places. We kind of thought they would take him to Eugene. I continued my ride, rode up north. I got to make a separate video about this car I was behind, not because they were so bad, but because they were so good. Really quite remarkable, at least in this day and age where, at least in the area where I live, in the San Francisco Bay Area, a lot of car drivers seem completely unfamiliar with the concept of staying within their own lane on curvy roads. This car driver was driving one-handed in an old Buick, and with neither tire coming anywhere near the double yellow line or the fog line on the right. She was really good. Anyway, I wish more drivers had that sort of just paying attention. I continued back south, but I began to feel ill after a while. I did some great riding. Let me talk about that a little bit. Once I got back to I-5, I ended up working my way down to Cave Junction and then taking the back road that drops down into Happy Camp. They're doing construction on that road, and so you need to be aware of that. But there was a huge fire there since the last time I rode. It's probably been 5-6 years since I've ridden it, but there's a huge amount of devastation out there, quite sobering. Dropped into Happy Camp, rode 96, spent the night in Wairika. The next day I got up and I wanted to go home because I was starting to feel not quite right. But I always have to ride fun stuff. I can't just ride the bad stuff. So I took off from Wairika down Highway 3, had a late breakfast in Weaverville, continued down through Hayfork to Highway 36, west on 36 to Bridgeville, and then south on Alder Point Road to Garberville, and then I sat in on 101 and ground at home. And then the reason so I was pretty busy. I didn't really much feel like actually making videos in the evening. I was more interested in socializing with my friend. Plus, we didn't have any Wi-Fi connection anyway. But then I got home and I started feeling kind of cruddy the next day. I mean, really cruddy. Cruddy enough that I broke out some COVID tests. Don't have COVID, but I was down with a fever and other less pleasant symptoms for several days, still not feeling very well. Head's still congested, lungs are still congested. Apparently there's a nasty flu going around. That's what the advice nurse at Kaiser told me. So that's why I'm just getting around to doing this now. This was the first day I really felt like going out and doing it. Anyway, there's an update. I'm still alive. There are some great roads in southwestern Oregon. It's going to be worthwhile going up there and exploring some more. Maybe you want to come with me sometime. Let's talk about it. Talk to you soon. It's been Kurt from Transformative Journeys.